Though TV tech is constantly evolving, it's not so often that certain technology brings a huge leap forward, perhaps even a small revolution. After the cathode tube we've been staring at for decades, a first such an advancement was made by the TFT technology, then plasma, and its successor in a sense, OLED, as well as the controllable backlight with local dimming, which has given the TFT a new life and allowed it to stay competitive and current. For years back, we've listened to all the talk about mini-LED and micro-LED technologies, which are supposed to be the next revolutions in this domain. We even saw some test devices on tech fairs, but no actual retail TVs that use them. Let's explain what these actually are. Micro-LED, which is more advanced of the two, is similar to OLED in a sense that it is a self-emissive technology where every pixel produces its own light, the difference being that micro-LED uses regular instead of organic diodes and therefore is not susceptible to burn-in at high brightness and with long-term use. This is something that is yet to come, by my estimate not for a few years at least, until we see an actual retail model you can get at the store. On the other hand, mini-LED is already here, as last year we were able to see some models for USA market only, and this year it's making its global debut in many models by various brands, though mainly in the high-end segment. Mini-LED is in fact a type of backlight, same as the currently used direct LED, except instead of large diodes it uses a larger number of miniature modern LEDs. There are a few advantages to this, so for instance they can fit much more diodes on the same surface and get a much finer local dimming with a larger number of dimming zones. Another thing is that a larger number of diodes also means a more evenly distributed backlight, as the diffuser can be brought closer to the panel, plus it also means more brightness because of the proximity between the panel and the backlight and less energy lost. It all sounds great in theory, but how it actually works we got to see on an LG QNED99, which is the first mini-LED TV we got to test in its not-so-mini 65-inch version. And we were pretty excited about it until we had to actually carry it inside our studio, since it is a seriously heavy TV. Visually, at first glance, it is a pretty typical LG LCD TV, similar to the previous nanocell models, with a U-shaped stand and thin panel frame, about 5mm of additional margin, and a relatively thin bottom bezel. The frame is made of aluminum, the back of the TV is metal, and it's all nicely made and leaves an impression of a quality device. Contributing to this is a very thin profile, which we'll attribute to the mini-LED and its advantages we've mentioned, which allow for a tightly packed device. The only thing that does not fit this impression of quality is the stand, which is made of plastic and is not very firm, so the TV will rock if you accidentally bump it when passing by the shelf. Personally, I would definitely wall mount this TV, especially since the thin profile allows it to sit very close to the wall. As for the connectors, they are separated into two sections, a smaller one accessible from the side containing two HDMI ports, one USB and a CI Plus slot, and a larger one accessible from the bottom with two more HDMIs, two USBs, optical audio output, antenna and satellite connectors, and curiously an IR blaster port to connect a Y cable with two IR sensors on each end. We're not 100% sure what it does, but we can assume that it's there to aid the universal control of devices like soundbars and set-top boxes. Plus, it seemed as if Magic Remote was more precise after we connected the sensors. All HDMI ports are, as expected, version 2.1, which in this case, besides the 4K connection at 120Hz, also allows 8K at 60Hz, with the use of string compression due to the huge bitrate required for such a signal. Auto-low latency mode, eARC and VRR are supported, as well as HGIG and AMD FreeSync Premium, so except for the NVIDIA G-Sync, you practically get a complete set of gaming features found on current LG OLED models. There's also a game optimizer menu, and we've measured the input lag of 15.7 milliseconds in game mode, which is just slightly more than standard for LG TVs. To produce an image, QNED99 uses a quantum dot-equipped nanocell IPS panel in front of the aforementioned mini-LED backlight with an 8K resolution and 120Hz refresh rate. We're used to seeing IPS from LG in their nanocell TVs, and it offers superior viewing angles compared to VA, even though the contrast is nowhere near the VA. In fact, it's about 4 to 5 times less, in this case around 1060 to 1. Of course, due to the advanced backlight system, the TV is able to control the brightness of each zone and achieve a much higher contrast, theoretically infinite, as it turns certain parts off completely. On a specific 65-inch model, there are around 1800 zones, while the largest 86-inch one has 2500 zones. This is indeed a very impressive figure, one of the largest local dimming zone counts we've seen and an absolute most on any LG TV so far, so we would expect it to simply blow away anything else in real use, but that is not the case. The backlight dimming is just not as precise as it could be with so many zones, so the size of the brighter field around the bright objects and subtitles, so-called blooming, is also larger than expected. Also, backlight dimming algorithms are not very restrictive, so the performance of this model in terms of contrast, local dimming, and blooming is about on a level of the best VA-based models we've seen in the last few years, though we expect to see better among this year's models. On the plus side, you get such a performance with IPS viewing angles, so we can say that what LG achieved is still impressive, even if we did expect more from MiniLED. Speaking of more, the measured maximum brightness was 1012 nits, but only at 25% coverage, with around 500 nits at 100%, which is not that much more than the C1 OLED. Also, backlight uniformity is not the best, certainly not on a level we expect from a MiniLED, as it is one of its promised improvements. With all that said, subjectively the image quality is still excellent, and you can tell right away that it is a quantum dot panel, due to its signature display of vivid but still natural looking colors. Interestingly, LG calls this a quantum dot nanocell panel, and we know that nanocell is also a type of filtering layer, practically an LG tech similar to quantum dot, for which they don't have to pay the license fee. Therefore, we assume that in this case it is actually a true quantum dot, which we must say looks better than anything we've seen under nanocell branding, so we applaud this decision, and the combination of quantum dot, IPS and MiniLED really looks great, in line with the best models we've seen so far. The panel is a true 10-bit one and able to display 87.8% of DCI-P3 gamut according to our measurements, which is a few percent less than this year's OLED and the best quantum dot models. Atypical for LG, factory color calibration is not that impressive, so the best filmmaker mode shows a fairly high delta E deviation of 5.7, while the traditionally accurate ISF modes are slightly less accurate than that. The best visual impression, in my opinion, is in standard and LG's own cinema mode, rather than the filmmaker. As for the image processing, QNED99 is run by a 4th Gen Alpha 9 8K processor, which uses deep learning to optimize the image and does it quite well. Besides tone mapping and dynamic control of various image parameters, this processor is also able to detect faces and bodies and improve their display, though some of the features are only active in 8K and some others only in 4K. When it comes to HDR, this TV supports Dolby Vision IQ, a dynamic mapping which takes into account the room lighting, as well as HDR10 Pro, LG's own dynamic tone mapping technology. Image processing algorithms like upscaling and motion processing are standard for LG, meaning very good, though we've noticed one flaw we have not seen on previous models, which manifests as small glitches on the edges of fast-moving objects that have high contrast against the background, perhaps caused by the 8K resolution, which everything needs to be upscaled to. Speaking of resolution, 8K is still a bit avant-garde, and on a screen this size, it's not that easy to spot the difference in video compared to 4K, except at extreme proximity, though it certainly does exist. 8K content is available, but mainly on YouTube in the form of short fancy showcase clips shot on expensive cameras, so after you marvel at those for a while, 8K will be basically useless. That is, unless you intend to connect this TV to your PC and use it as an 8K monitor, when this resolution and sitting close to the TV might make sense for some specific users who need a lot of screen real estate, an equivalent of having 4 32-inch 4K monitors. Be ready for a really tiny text at 100% resolution scaling though, but the display quality is excellent. Overall, even with all the complaints we have in terms of image quality, the QNED99 is still by far the best LG LCD TV ever, and one of the best LCD models we've seen so far, with a true HDR display in every sense. As for the sound, it is very good, though not on a level of the best models out there. It is a 4.2 system with 60 watts of power, 20 watts for the woofers and 10 for each channel. Bass frequencies it is able to deliver extend down to about 30 Hz, though the loudness drops fast below 60 Hz, so the sub-bass is not that present, while there is plenty of the rest of the bass. As with the image, this TV also supports AI sound processing, although the AI mode tends to overdo accenting of certain parts of the sound spectrum, making the TV sound worse even cheaper, with this option on, even if it does do wonders in terms of soundstage. The standard mode gives a very balanced sound and of higher quality, so we recommend sticking to it for music and everything else, except maybe movies where you would like a bit more spacious sound. Additional sound features include Dolby Atmos support, automated frequency response adjustments for specific room and TV position, as well as the option of using Bluetooth speakers as additional surround speakers, which might be useful for movie lovers as a fairly cheap surround solution. On the software side, there are no surprises as the QNED99 comes with WebOS in version 6.0, which we already saw this year on C1 OLEDs. This system was redesigned compared to previous WebOS versions, though it still offers a recognizable user experience that is still one of the best you can get on any smart TV. The main menu is now full screen and not an overlay, with 3 banners on top for weather forecast, search and tips, which looks great but perhaps should not be on the prime spot. Below the banners, there's a line with all the installed apps, dashboard with input and source selections, content viewing suggestions, and sports alert feature, which this time around comes with an extended selection of sports, leagues and teams, a very useful option that's getting better and better, and that will show you the schedule and notify you when your favorite teams are on. As for the available apps, WebOS is offering all the relevant video and music streaming services and content providers, so the only complaint we may have is a bit outdated selection of games, which could use some work in the future versions. As we're used to, the TV is controlled by LG's Magic Remote, which was redesigned for 2021 and offers a familiar gyroscopic cursor control, quality keys, and is only missing a pause button compared to previous model, though you can also use the LG's ThinQ mobile app to make up for that, which also supports content sharing from your mobile device. All in all, LG's QNED99 is undoubtedly a really good TV, with proper HDR, image quality to rival the best models on the market, and overall an excellent user experience, even if it does not make the best use out of MiniLED's potential. We have expected higher maximum brightness and better backlight control that would elevate this model above the best direct LED FALD models, especially considering the price of this TV, which is around $4,000 for a 65-inch model. As it is, we do believe that C1 OLED is a much better buy, with comparable brightness, equally good viewing angles, and better uniformity, so the QNED99 will mainly be an option for those who don't want to think about burn-in effect, or wish to make use of 8K resolution connecting this TV to their PC. So let us know in the comments below how you like this TV and what are your thoughts on this 8K mini LED model. We hope you enjoyed this review enough to give us a thumbs up and maybe consider subscribing to our channel for more interesting tech content. You were watching Bench House, my name is Ivan, and I'll see you next time.